The gentleman yields back the balance this time. I now recognize the gentleman from Iowa, Mr. King, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I thank the Secretary for your testimony. I would like to start this out with the type of governor you've been. I applauded you for signing the increase in the speed limit on our interstates up to 70. It saved me untold hours of productivity that I can use for other endeavors, and I appreciate that. I would take us back, however, to something I think is a disagreement, and we've had this discussion in my office with regard to the Pigford issue. And in that discussion, I related to you that then chairman of this committee, Colin Peterson, whom I wish were here at this moment, he and I had a discussion of a disagreement where I had pointed out that a placeholder in the 2008 Farm Bill would result in $1.3 billion additional money going into the Pigford claims, which I have been very clear on my judgment that many of them are fraudulent. And we had that disagreement. The chairman of this committee established his opinion to me very clearly, that he said that the language in the 2008 Farm Bill was a hard cap, $100 million, and that would resolve all of the Pigford claims and put an end to it. I went back after our discussion when you told me that I had voted to authorize you to negotiate with the farmers to open up and resolve Pigford 2. As I read the language, which I've asked that be handed to you, and it is section 14012, I see the $100 million there, I see the language there, and it reads to me that it's to, it shall be made exclusively from funds made available, and that it shall be the complete debt relief to resolve all the issues before Pigford. Now, often I'm the non-lawyer in the room, but I have some lawyers around me that read this that concur with me on that. And I think, Mr. Secretary, it probably would be better not to ask you to render a legal judgment on that language here in a short notice, but I'd ask you if you would respond to that inquiry in writing after you've had some time to evaluate the language here, unless you're prepared today.
I just want to make sure I understand the question.
Okay. The question is, do you agree with a ranking member of this committee, Colin Peterson, then chair, that the $100 million that's in the 2008 Farm Bill is to put an end to take care of all outstanding unresolved Pigford claims? And if so, then where did you and Attorney General Eric Holder get the authority to negotiate with John Boyd to open up this $1.25 billion claim, which was attached to the co-bill and passed by the 111th Congress? That's one of my questions.
Well, let me just see if I can respond, and then we'll be happy to amplify on it as well in writing. The reality is that the view was that this amount was not sufficient and adequate to actually provide the relief that folks needed, given the number of potential claims that were not yet fully resolved, that this wasn't sufficient.
And so even though the statute, as I read it, says that $100 million shall be all of the money spent to resolve all the cases, and it shall be construed so as to effectuate its remedial purpose of giving a full determination on all the merits for each Pigford claim previously denied that determination.
Well, the problem is it doesn't actually give a full determination because there wasn't sufficient resources in this. Plus, again, with due respect to the drafting of this, it wasn't clear whether any of this money could be used to actually process the claims, which is to say putting the information together. And when I came into the office, I was advised that there was probably insufficient resources to both satisfy the claims and also pay the administrative expense associated with it.
And then so you and Attorney General Holder, I presume with direction from the White House, opened up the negotiation with John Boyd, the president of the Black Farmers Association, and came to a number which I believe was $1.15 billion, which was the number that was in the CR that passed in the 111th Congress that we're operating under now, and that's the authority. And I'm curious, a second question into that as I watch my clock tick. Is there now a consent decree, or is there any kind of legal document that binds any of the parties involved in Pigford 2?
First of all, we didn't negotiate with Mr. Boyd. There really wasn't a negotiation with Mr. Boyd. Secondly, The court is in the process of reviewing this and will essentially, because it's a class action, will essentially have to bless this. We anticipate that that will take place relatively soon.
And then, so your authority to reach this conclusion that you recommended to the Congress that we appropriate the $115 or $1.15 billion, what was the source of that authority?
The authority was that it was not a sufficient amount to resolve the class action that was pending.
If we have a authorization statute here that caps it at $100 million to resolve all of it, and it doesn't seem to me that there's any authority beyond that $100 million the way I read this section.
Secretary can respond.
Congressman, you all obviously can change your mind at any point in time, and I think it's fairly fair to say that Congress does from time to time change its mind about things, and I think that's essentially what you did. It was not sufficient to resolve the case. That's the problem, and this was, I think, a relatively arbitrary number that was not necessarily tied directly to the number of claims and the amount it would take to settle the case.
And ask unanimous consent for an additional minute.
Seeing no objection, 1 additional minute.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got a news report in front of me regarding Pearlie Reed, USDA Assistant Secretary for the Administration, individual that does work on your team.
Yes.
And it's reported that he was in Brinkley, Arkansas in late January, where he told a crowd that Pigford 1 is under review and that those trying to defraud the government in Pigford 2 will go to the penitentiary. I like that last part of this phrase. Is Pigford 1 under review? And is there an IG investigation to look at Pigford 1?
I'm not sure what Pearlie's referring to there, Congressman. If you'd give me an opportunity to visit with him about what he meant. I'm not aware of that, but that doesn't mean that it's not happening.
And are you aware that there's an investigation of Pigford 1 under review?
I'm not aware of that. It could very well be. Oftentimes the Inspector General doesn't let us know all of the investigations that are underway.
Gentlemen,
okay, thank you, Mr. Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.